Welcome back, everyone, to Backstage Banter. Today, Jay and I are discussing mistakes and the perseverance that it takes to keep going on and doing the work that we do as production managers and stage managers. We also are going to be discussing curiosity and how that opens up conversations rather than closing them down and allowing people to become more defensive. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about music and kind of what we're into and how music has changed over the years. So stay tuned. We've got a pretty cool episode today.
Hey, Brian, do you want to talk about how to lose a gig really fast? Because it's pretty easy.
That's a
being an event planner that you are.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah. I think we've all lost a gig at least once.
Let's hope you don't do that a lot, because you're only as good as your last gig,
especially as a freelancer.
Especially as a freelancer. So get out there and do the good work. And I actually wrote a short article about that very thing. If we want to glide through it, it's probably like a 4-minute read or something.
Yeah, let's go through it.
Cool. So somebody asked me a question about how exact do you have to be when you're doing a show for, you get one take at it, right? One shot. And I just said, each and every time you pretty much have to nail it. I mean, you have to be perfect, because if you don't, you could be out of the gig. And just like that, one tiny, small little thing that we may think isn't the end of the world, but for that client, they may not agree. And on top of everything else, you made them look bad or embarrassed because of an oversight on your part, on my part as a production manager. So this is the time to be proactive, right? And really try to nail down the details of some of these things. But maybe that is how they're going to remember you, right? As the producer or as the stage manager that didn't call the cues correctly, the person that didn't make sure that the script cues actually match the slides being shown on the screen. This is just all things that I have done, everybody. So what if you call the wrong cue?
Skeletons in the closet.
Hey, let's lay it out. Hey, this is how we learn, right? What if you call the wrong cue for CEO? Because you're going to think like nobody would do that. Well, guess what? Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. What if you call the wrong cue for the CEO's walk-on music? A show where, like each person that comes to the podium gets to play their own favorite song, their walk-on music, on stage, like in front of 1,000 of their fellow employees. They look like rock stars, and then a different song comes on for the CEO. You're like, he wants to hear like, Guns N' Roses and Linda Ronstadt comes on.
You're like, what is this?
He's like, what the fuck? Right. So, so that can make you gotta pay attention to the details, man. Or how about when that CEO, or I can laugh at it now, right? Or anyone for that matter is speaking at the microphone at the lectern, and they go to grab the glass of water that they asked you to put on the lectern shelf because they have a dry throat and they've started coughing. And as you look out across the stage at the shelf on the lectern, you have this sudden panic attack. I have this sudden panic attack, realizing that I forgot to put the water glass out for the CEO. They look off stage left and then off stage right for someone to bring them a glass of water. We don't have any backup water. No one is doing that. So a guest from the first row of the dinner table walks up to the stage and gives it to the CEO.
Yikes.
That kind of shit you're going to remember.
Yeah.
Right. So what about this one, man? This is one of my all-time fuck ups. Turning on the stadium house lights before Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones had finished singing their encore, Jumping Jack Flash. Man. That is a story we can save for another time. It actually happened to me, and I was told you'll never work in this town again. I thought that only happened in the movies, but so I relate, like I said, I relate to these disasters because I have made all of these mistakes myself, or I have witnessed mistakes happening to my crew on shows that I have produced. Equipment failures, even after you have checked everything, and we were show ready. The video didn't play right when I called the go cue, the little bit of feedback on the microphone, the mic that's turned on late, or the music cue that you needed to start early because the audio tech didn't wait for the stage manager's go. And how about having to do employee damage control, right? I've had to do that. Or how about losing a gig with a first-time brand new client? And this was a high-profile gig because during the loadout, 2 of our stagehands decided to start telling each other to fuck off because they couldn't decide which was the best way to fold the drape up. And that was they said that just at the same moment that the most conservative CEO in San Diego walked back into the ballroom because he forgot something at his table. And he heard that. And after he witnessed it, he found me at the back of the room and he fired me right there on the spot. He said, "Those guys work for you?" I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "No more. You guys are gone." And he told me why.
Wow.
And I actually heard them across the room. So what do I say? I say, don't do those things. And wouldn't that be great, right? But we can't stop mistakes from happening. That's not realistic. So we got to recognize what is in our control and what's not. So how can we reduce those opportunities for the mistakes? And that's to be proactive, so you don't have to be reactive. And my good friend Michael Richter, production manager now for REO Speedwagon, would always tell me, proper prior planning prevents poor performance. And PPP, proper prior planning, and that's easier said than done. I get it. Sometimes things just go wrong, but how many times did those things go wrong because of human error?
Right.
If something does or doesn't happen, it's because the stage crew let their guard down or whatever. We all make mistakes, and the only stupid one is the one that we make twice, and nobody's perfect. 3 favorite words today that you find yourself using, more than others. We were just talking about your renters coming into your space, right? Your venue, not knowing how, community theater, very difficult, challenging for you. What word would come up that, would be something for you to take away from that you can focus on for the next time they come in?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. Yeah. Wow, man.
Yeah, curiosity.
That's tell me about that. Like, what is that? Why? Tell me about that.
First of all, I believe that being curious opens up conversations and lets people have a dialogue with less defensiveness. And I feel like, whenever you're coming from, well, you should have done this or you didn't do this right, it's very blaming language. If I come in, and I'm not saying that's how I operated, but I think that that if I would have been more curious about things that maybe they said that I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, and maybe I didn't ask a question. I feel like if I was a little bit more active and giving more service, and I was more in that mindset, I probably would have been more curious and I would have asked more questions.
But the thing about being curious, which I like, is that it also tells the person that you are interested and listening and want to be a part of their conversation. Here's a couple of ideas of, how do you talk to your crew? Like, what do we tell them after that? Especially in college, things can go wrong. And, I just got to turn those setbacks into like an opportunity for future success. Just tell them this is the place to make those mistakes, and that disappointments are temporary, and you'll all get on and live happily ever after. And they apply growth opportunities, right? So, and then I also tell them that they're not alone, right? We've all done it, and time and patience and perseverance, they will get there as well. And the importance, and talk about perseverance, right? To tell them, how to setbacks, how to jump back from a setback, and that we all go through these. And really, the true growth comes from overcoming those challenges, right? And then just keep going, continue. Don't let the fail fuck you up, right? Don't let the fail fuck you up, because it can turn into something
really how you respond to
different. It's really how you respond to it. But the thing is if you make a fuck up, right, you may think it's the worst thing in the world right now, right? Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. But 5 months from now, 6 months from now, that little stupid thing that you did has turned into a positive experience, a positive thing, And I think I mentioned that in the first episode when I got booted out of school because I had shitty grades, and I was like, fuck you, I'm going to New York, right? And when I was there, I met the old Globe Theater, and then had I not failed out of school, I wouldn't have the career, to have started like I did. So you got to try to keep that in perspective, that, and doing that, it is self-care. Is we have to try to do some kind of self-care, go home and just, face it. I use this thing called FADM, FADM, face it, accept it. Acceptance is important. Deal with it and then move forward, right? So if you kind of can go at your challenges with face it, accept it, deal with it, move forward, you'll get there. You'll get there. And I don't mean move on, right? I didn't say move on, because by moving on, it means that you kind of left something unattended to. But moving forward has a very positive thought on that. And, just revisit the goals, realign expectations, and reevaluate. Well, what would you do different next time?
Yeah, some
And
reflection.
that's good. Yeah, yeah. So that's my take on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As
Yeah, I
far
agree.
as,
I really think the self-care part of it is even when you don't fuck up, and maybe it's a much more minor thing, and it's not this catastrophic, thing of getting fired or, not getting to, get rehired for a gig or whatever. And I think that there's like even like the minor mistakes that you might make, and maybe you don't have a great interaction with someone, or I don't know, you come back late from break, or I don't know, just like, it could be something small. And
yeah.
I feel like
Mhm.
it's easy to be hard on yourselves, especially if you're trying to
Oh,
operate at this high level that we all
of
are all the
course.
time. And it's important to give yourself that grace whenever you're coming home and you're like, I'm done with my day, and I just need to, like, you know let my guard down now that I'm home, and not letting yourself get caught up in that loop of judging yourself, and like that self-talk that you have in your head when you're, really down and out on something. So, finding
Yeah.
that ability, in that place in your mind, and also when you're at home, things that make you happy, the things that kind of bring you out of that headspace, I think is really important, because otherwise it's really easy to stay there and to be
Oh
in that
man.
negative energy, and then you go back and you're still carrying that thing that you were that's done and over with and in the past, not that you
Right.
shouldn't, reflect and improve from it, but that, you
Right.
don't want to
Right.
continuously carry it with you, because it's just going to weigh you down.
Yeah. And it's going to cause the second, like this, your second day to be like even more
Hmm.
shitty, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that it's not easy to do,
Yeah.
everybody. We
Yeah.
all know that, right? It would be great if we, but those of us that care, and I think this is what happens, is that I fucking care about my shows,
Yeah.
man. I care about my clients. So when something goes wrong, like I take it like pretty hard, and then I go through it and I go, okay, um, this is what happened. Was it in my control? Was it not? Don't blame people. Accepting that, accepting a mistake, right? Accepting responsibility for something that didn't go well is also important, but then you got to let it go. And like you said, before you go in your house, right? Leave that shit at the door, as they say. But that's not easy to do. So, do some breathing exercises, literally, like, breathe in deep. If you sit out in your car before you go inside, and I've done this myself, I take a deep breath through my nose, I hold it, and then I let it out, right? And if you do that now, everybody, you'll just feel this thing in your shoulders go, you'll feel that go. So do that 3 times, and hopefully it'll help you. But don't take it out on the people
Yeah.
inside.
Something something that I do is, whenever I'm someone who takes showers at night before I go to bed, and
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I as I'm taking a shower, I actually visualize that, like, anything that I've had that was negative from the day is like washing off of me. And
Oh yeah, water is
yeah,
great
so
for
I
that,
I
man.
always,
It's very
while I'm in the shower, I'm like,
powerful.
I'm washing the day away, kind of thing, and kind
Yeah,
of starting over. So
good.
that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways. I mean, picture balloons floating away, and each balloon, has a problem tied to the string of it as it floats away. There's all sorts of, things that we can use as
Yeah.
metaphors to let go of the stress. But don't get down on yourself if the next day it's still there, right? The important thing is that you recognize that the stress is there, right? The first opportunity to defeat it is to
Hmm.
recognize it, and you recognize it by being present, being in the now. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now is a really good resource to listen to or to read. But being present and being in that moment right now, this
Yeah.
moment,
That's all there is.
when you're in this moment, well, and you know what, yeah, absolutely. And if we're in this moment, we can't be in the moment from the
Yeah.
past, and we can't be in the moment of the
Yeah.
future. because we're here, and that's the important part. So if you can be here, then we can't be other places. You can't be two places at once. Meditation, listen, I tried it the first time. I lasted 35 seconds. And even in the 35 seconds, I thought that we were supposed to forget our thoughts, but it's not. It's about closing your eyes and breathing, recognizing when the thought comes in, and then recognizing it if it can go away.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is all really good stuff for a podcast on balance, or something. Self-care, right?
Mhm.
Self-care is
Yeah.
important, and it's funny because in the Production Manager's Toolkit, the first edition, I wrote concluding with balance as the very last chapter. Most of our chapters were 20 to 25, 27 pages long. The concluding with balance chapter was like 8 pages long, and I had a lot of photos to help me get to those 8 pages because I didn't know what to write to balance.
Yeah.
What the fuck do I know? Like Carrie's like, no, you got to do that. I'm like, I don't know. Am I like, to me, I love working. So, so there's that dilemma too. What if you love what you do, and it's not affecting your family life, or do I need to balance? Do I need to go play golf? Like all that stuff is like, I don't really want to do that.
Well, everyone's boundaries are different, It's like some people don't mind working from home, or like late at night or getting a text here and there or whatever. And some other people, they like those clear-cut boundaries of like, this is my day off and I'm not working on my day off, or like everyone's sense of what that balance is all very different. Like what you think is balanced for you might feel very unbalanced for me and vice versa. So I think that I think like you're saying, like you said, it's about recognizing and listening to your body, listening to your brain, and like what do you need to feel that balance? And it's going to be different for everyone, but the most important thing is to just recognize and to take that moment to just notice how am I feeling? Is everything good? Am I in alignment? Do I feel like I'm grounded and everything? And if you're not, then you just go to the next step and figure out, okay, well, how do I fix that? So, yeah.
Right. And again, recognizing it.
Exactly.
Right. Recognizing it. Yeah. Because sometimes, man, when for a long time, I didn't even recognize it. I'm just like pissed off. I'm just like, the guy that I work for is a fucking asshole. And I would leave like, fuck. And I didn't, it took my husband to be like, yo,
what's wrong?
Well, he got tired of hearing it. Every time I came home, I was bitching about, this work situation. And you can only take that so long, I think, until, somebody goes, you know what, dude, shut the fuck up and make a change in your life. If you're not happy. And that's not easy either. But that happened, and we could talk about that on another episode of how I started my company. Was exactly that. Was my husband saying, shut the fuck up and make yourself happy, and leave, quit, start your own thing.
Yeah.
And I was just, I don't have any clients, blah, blah, blah. I had all these excuses. And it wasn't until he said, listen, I would lose and give up all of this that we have acquired, a home in North, all the shit, right? All the 85 and stuff. I would give all that up and move into a studio apartment with nothing if you would be a happier person. Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, happiness is everything, man.
Well, the next day I started my own company because I felt like that was permission. That gave me the permission to tell this guy to go fuck himself because he was such a horrible person.
I think the quality of life is such an important thing, and like so many people, like I feel really grateful that I had parents that didn't force me to go down a path. And both of my parents, they didn't go to college, they're not educated. And
Brian, but they are. I'm sure.
Well, I don't mean to.
Like, not formally.
No. I don't mean to say they're stupid. That's not what I'm trying to say. But they they don't go to college. I'm the first one in my family, in fact, to go to college. And so they didn't have this like, oh well, this is what you got to do, and this is how you do it, and you got to go be a lawyer. And I didn't have that sort of that wasn't part of my upbringing. It was always
Right.
like, do what you want to do, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're interested in. We can't help you, but if that's what you want to go do, then go do it,
No,
you
that's
know?
awesome though. That's
And
awesome.
so
Yeah.
in my way of going to pursue what I wanted to do, I eventually found being a stage manager. And I just remember one of my brothers and some friends being like, "Oh, you're gonna be eating ramen your whole life. You're never gonna be doing this, that, and the other." And I almost gave up because I was like, man, do I really want to have that kind of life? But I continued going, and like now that I am where I am, I love what I do. I love collaborating with people, and I love having that interaction. I love not having the same fucking schedule every single day, day in and out for years and years and
Right.
years. There's always something that's changing, and so I think that it's really important, to do things that you enjoy and things that make you happy, because that is everything, like the having the job that pays you $150,000 a year might sound great and very enticing, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fulfill you or that it's going to give you what you want in life, and you might have to deal with a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
So I think it's a really
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
thing to consider, and most people probably already know that, but I just, people, I feel
It's
like people stay in jobs, and it's not even about like, oh well, if you're young, go after something. It's like it could be for anyone. If you're in a job that you don't like or that you hate for whatever reason, I think that figuring out what your next step is, like you did, saying what do I need to do to make the quality of my life better, and that's exactly what you
yeah.
did.
Yeah, but not everybody is like I was fortunate to have a husband that was like, listen, I support you. A lot of people don't have that and stay in a stuck position because they don't feel like they have any like oh yeah, it's really easy to tell me to go I'm just going to start over and but tell that to somebody whose entire income is based on and they don't have anything
Yeah.
else lined up. It's a tough decision, it's a tough decision. And I get that, and I try to tell students when you start to recognize you're unhappy, start to think about where would you rather be,
Uh-huh.
right? Where would you, if you had to make a choice, where would you go, right? And then try to put yourself in those situations. It doesn't have to go fast, it doesn't have to be
Right.
immediate, but just start thinking about, okay, how can I kind of get into that industry a little bit,
Hmm.
right? And then we start working the relationships that we have, that who, it's not about who it's about who knows you thing, right? So like I have students tell me all the time, hey, I want to go into this area, whether it's cruise ships or they don't, not nobody's always knows what we want to do, and that's okay too. And that's another conversation about a TED talk that I think is brilliant that says you don't have to, you can do a lot of things, you don't have to be a one thing
Yeah.
person. um
Yeah, I think it's a really
but
old
I
way of
want,
thinking of like this is like your
it
thing
is
and
totally,
you have to be at this
yeah,
job and you have to get
yeah,
retire from
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's over
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's really old school. But they worry, like the students were, I'm going to graduate and I need to be this. Like, this is what I want to do for and I just say, listen, open your horizons, right? Get as many, if you could be a stage manager, what else could you do? You could be a company manager.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Instead of taking care of props and shit, you're taking care of groceries and
Hmm.
shit, right? You could be a transportation
Yeah,
manager because you're
logistics.
coordinating cars. I mean, there's so many things that the training, so don't say, I have to be a stage manager. You could work for a destination management company and book 100 SeaWorld tickets and make sure that everybody's having a good time. You really can do just about anything.
Yeah.
What I wanted to go back to something because you say, it's important to do something that fulfills us, right? And that in itself becomes the question that what else fulfills me? And I have been asked that many times by Mark, my husband. What else? What? Because I'm like, I'm gonna retire, right? and he goes, oh yeah, and then what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Like he knows what to say. I go, well, I would write music and play my guitar. He goes, for the rest of your life, every day,
Yeah, you're gonna get bored.
right? Like the smart guy. Yeah. So he goes, it's just you don't have any hobbies, man. This is kind of funny. You don't have any hobbies, so think about that. You don't, I hate golf. I don't sit through movies well. Yeah, I don't have a lot of hobbies when you actually think about it, which is sad. But I go, give me an idea. What do you think I should have as a hobby, right? And he goes, I don't know, like clip fucking bonsai trees. I don't know, right? And I'm like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. So I get the bonsai kit.
Are
This is
you
a true
fucking
story. I
serious?
get the fucking, yeah, man. I go, I get the kit, and I get the tree, and I'm all set, and he's just sitting there like, I'm like putting the dirt, on the, put the paper on the table so I don't get anything dirty, and I'm all set to go. And you're supposed to visualize like what the tree is supposed to look like, before you start clipping it. And what happened was I go to pick up the scissors, and they're little tiny, tiny scissors, and my fat fingers wouldn't fit in the holes. So I couldn't even maneuver the scissors and the stuff, and I lost my patience after. I'm like, boom, after like a half hour, I was in the office, and he comes back and he goes, well, that didn't take long. And I go, now put it out on the balcony, because he's great with plants. Like, you take care of it. He goes, it's not my hobby,
That's
and
funny.
then anyway, yeah. So, but it was an eye opener. Like, what do we want to do when we're not doing this?
Yeah, that's right. It's
I don't have an answer yet. I don't have an answer. That's why I want to do online teaching for as long as I can. Like, I want to teach, and a mentor. And maybe that's I don't want to go to campus every day, right? Like, I don't want to do that schlepping, but I'd be happy to do it sitting in my little house,
from the comfort of your own.
making tapes. Yeah, making tapes or tapes.
Tape.
Making something. Tape, yeah. How old am I? Learning programs for community theaters, things like that.
Yeah.
And, who knows?
Yeah, I know. I find myself
You never know.
find myself just doing random little projects here and there and helping my sister with this thing with organizing and like helping to make her job easier. And I feel like I'm constantly just I'm not really working, but it technically is kind of working, but it's not like for my job, But it's like just doing stuff on Notion and stuff, and I'm creating databases, and I'm doing a lot of research and learning on stuff, how to organize more efficiently, and I mean,
multitasking.
yeah. So I'm constantly like digging and figuring out how can I do this better? How can this is cool. And I just I tinker with it for a little bit. It's like my version of tinkering, I guess.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, when you start tinkering, because this is my challenge, I'll be up, I love to work, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. because it's just quiet and I feel just at peace. But I don't send emails at 4 a.m. because then people are like, what the fuck are you doing up at 4 a.m.? So the schedule send is my friend. But what I'll do is I'll be like, oh, I feel like writing, right? And I get out my writing book and I write some sad country love breakup song lyrics because it just came into my head. And I'll put that down because I want to work on my patent pending application. And I do that for a minute. And then I want to write an article for this, and suddenly I'm like, whoa, I've got like 4 things going right now. And I go and I bounce back and forth to them. Is that good? Is it bad? I don't know, but it's my process because I couldn't force myself to keep writing that song, but it's interesting, how everybody does that. And there was a story that came out on, I don't remember, but about multitasking, right? Because we all think that multitasking is fucking great, man. I can get a million things done. But I've never thought about this, is that it's also a form of procrastination in a way, that you're doing all these different things because you want to forget about this other thing, right? So
yeah, it's true.
It's interesting.
I think I don't think we can actually I don't think multitasking is actually possible. I think that it's like you're saying, it's like a symptom of procrastination because when you're doing something, our brains can't focus on 2 things at one time. Like when we do one thing, we have to do that thing. And even like when you're in the car, for example, and you're driving, you have to focus on driving, right? And then if you are listening to music, your brain is focusing on the music and driving. And then if you're eating and you're listening to music and you're driving, then your brain is focusing on all 3 of those things.
So and then right, you're making me have anxiety.
And then if you're on the phone, say you're on the phone and listening to music at the same time, which is never a good idea, and you're eating and driving, and then you're in traffic, for example, like that your brain is just like overloaded, and something is bound to go wrong. So it's like even something that is passive as driving and listening to music. Your brain is having to do all that work, whether you realize it or not. It's having to compute all that information. So when you're actually,
Right. But can we stop? Can we stop
yeah,
that? Like, if I go, okay, I just want to listen to music. How long does that last before you think about, hey, I wonder what I'm going to do? But it's like you got to train the brain. You got to retrain yourself. It's just like going to the gym. It's hard,
yeah,
man. And give yourself some grace if you're trying to do it. If you're trying to, there's plenty of short YouTubes about staying present. Just
yeah,
and I'm not great, y'all. I'm telling you, I'm not great. But it is what it is. I recognize it. And then I don't beat myself up when I can't do it, right? Because I was taught, probably like you, Brian, say yes to everything, right? When you're just making it, starting in the business,
yeah,
say yes to everything. It doesn't matter. Tell people yes, yes, I can do that. Yes, I
yeah,
can do
and then
that,
figure it out.
even if you don't know how to, right? So is that the right message now to be teaching Gen
Mm.
Zs to say yes to everything, or is that still something now? Because if you say no, like, if you say no to me, I'm going to hire you to do something, and you say no to me, will I call you again? Or will I say, hey, that's cool, no worries, man, let's try this. Just I'm going to keep calling you until you say, but the fear of saying no
Yeah,
is alive and real, and still for me, like, with my clients, I'm like, I don't want to tell him no. I'll find a way to do it. I got a call yesterday at 4 p.m. if I could make a 9:30 a.m. meeting this morning with a parachutist who's going to land on the Midway.
yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, I can.
hmm,
And I did. And they were very
yeah,
grateful, right? They were very grateful. But trust me, you don't need to talk to a parachutist for 35 minutes about how to land on the deck of the fucking
yeah.
Midway at all. It was a 5 minute question. It was a five, but he's the parachutist. He's the star. He wants to tell you all about how he's going to come in with the wind is at 6 knots this way and 20. And if it's not, then we're going to do this and that. And all I wanted to get at was, if you don't jump, does the client still pay your money? Give you the. And nobody had heard that question before. And the two event planners for the organization looked at me and they were like, "Hey, thanks for saying that." Hey, you
That's
never
funny.
know. You
Yeah.
never know.
Well, hey Jay, why don't we wrap up? I think we've
All
chatted quite a
righty.
bit about some really, really cool stuff. Yeah.
We went over a lot of stuff,
Yeah, we
Brian.
really
Like,
did. A lot of really, really
yeah,
important
like one
stuff.
thing, one thing on our bullet point of our outline is, and so we have some other stuff to get to.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna, and
Well,
so
that's the good thing about this podcast is that we can just kind of talk about whatever we want whenever as
yep,
it comes up.
yep,
It's structured but a little not fully structured, which is the way that you interact backstage, right? It's just you just
that's
kind of
right.
go with
You keep
it.
it loose,
Yeah. So
adaptable, and flexible.
what do you think what are we going to be talking about next week? What's on the slate for next week?
Um, well, I was taking a couple notes. I think I want to talk about that very thing that you just mentioned about um the rigidness of the schedule, because I want to talk about the syllabus,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm preparing my for the fall semester. It starts in a few weeks, and I just last year I tried an experiment and it worked, and I'm going to do it again. And I want to talk about that. I think that syllabus is dangerous, everybody, and we're going to find out why
Next
next
week.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool. Well,
All right.
yeah, well, talk to you next week and
You bet.
be sure to tune in, everyone.
Awesome. Play us some out music, Brian. Ooh.